Welcome back to Sith Crypto. Today we're going to go over some news that came out today. I think there was quite a bit of new updates that came out today. One pretty negative, one pretty positive. So we can just go ahead and jump into it. The first piece of news was an article that came out by The Block, and it's getting quoted all over Twitter. Supposedly, the article is saying that FTX walked away from a deal with Celsius. They're saying that the reason they walked away was because Celsius had a $2 billion deficit on their balance sheet. However, I do want to point out that it is a little bit suspicious that, once again, FTX is the common denominator across all of the FUD that's essentially coming out regarding Celsius. Why are the anonymous sources saying that FTX walked away from a deal to potentially buy Celsius, but didn't because of the $2 billion deficit, when just today they actually purchased BlockFi for a total of $275 million, $25 million of cash, and $250 million in a revolving loan. However, they acquired BlockFi, and that was always part of their plan. That's why they gave them that initial $250 million loan, was so that they could put them in a position that would essentially force them to get purchased by FTX, since there's no way that BlockFi would be able to pay off that $250 million loan. Definitely a predatory type of situation, and Celsius has over, I was looking at their website actually, and it shows you how much they have. So they have over $5 billion in assets currently, according to the website, but other information is saying that they have $10 billion in assets. Either way, $2 billion deficit. If somebody were to cover that with $2 billion, they would come out with $8 billion on top of it, of Celsius assets. So I don't know, it's a little bit more complex than that, obviously, but I just do think that it is interesting that FTX is at the forefront of this information that's been cited by anonymous sources. So I actually don't believe that this is necessarily entirely factual. I think that there's no way to verify this information, and FTX would probably be under some type of non-disclosure agreement, an NDA with Celsius, where they wouldn't be able to provide that information out. So those are a few reasons that I don't necessarily think that this is entirely factual, and I wouldn't credit this as something to go off of. And then also Celsius came out today with another update saying that they are still focused on working as quickly as possible to essentially allow depositors to withdraw their restructuring liabilities. They're saying that they're exhausting all the options available to them. The lawyers are recommending Chapter 11 bankruptcy. However, they are working and fighting the lawyers to not go bankrupt. One of the best options available to Celsius, in my opinion, right now, as of what's come out, is a recovery plan made by Simon Dixon, who is an early Bitcoin investor. He was actually there with Max Kaiser and some of the early Bitcoin investors that worked on Bitcoin at the very beginning. So he's been around helping get Bitcoin off the ground when nobody cared about Bitcoin, and he's been in it, and he's made a lot of money as a result of it. And he has about 5% stake in Celsius. So that's why he's so committed to helping Celsius, because A, he cares about depositors. He's in a position to help depositors since he is a stakeholder of Celsius, but he's not actively on the board. So he's still legally allowed to communicate with the public and share whatever his thoughts are, because he's not bound by the rules of everybody who's employed by Celsius. However, Celsius, I do believe, has reached out to Simon to help them potentially through this situation if his proposals become viable for Celsius to take. And you can actually see his proposals on his website, Bank to the Future. It's a company of his, but he has 3 different proposals. The first is restructuring Celsius, allowing depositors to benefit from that restructuring. However, that doesn't mean that all the funds are going to be guaranteed. Proposal 2 is that a pool of the most influential whales co-invest with the community. So essentially like a funding round. That would be interesting. BitFinex did it, and they were able to get users their funds back within 9 months, which is actually pretty impressive. And I believe that Tether spawned off of that. So it may involve, another type of token, for example. And then the third proposal is essentially having Celsius be, turning into a new company, potentially being bought out, or just turning into something new. Definitely not giving you the full, not giving you the full rundown of all these different proposals. I would definitely recommend to watch the video by Digital Asset News to get that information. I'll go ahead and link that in the video. And then I did want to cover, so essentially before I move into the next segment, Simon Dixon, that's the positive news. The FTX FUD about the $2 billion deficit and them walking away from the deal is the negative news. Everything is up in the air until Celsius gives us definitive information that they can tell us. As of right now, everything is hearsay and rumor. So I just want to make that clear. And the information that Celsius is giving us is that they are working hard to free up our assets to allow us to withdraw. And then the last bit of information that I want to cover is that the status of their loan, their loan here, the Wrapped Bitcoin loan hasn't moved since the 16th of June, below 14,220% collateral. So it's definitely doing good. What I do want to show you is that they have been actively unwinding liquidity, as you can see 10 hours ago and yesterday. So based on this, you can see that they have assets that they are making liquid, paying off loans, pulling things out to be able to free up as much liquidity as possible. So, regardless of the fact that Celsius is giving us or not giving us information, they're essentially legally not allowed to give us any information, but we can look at the on-chain data and we can see that Celsius is unwinding, becoming more liquid and working as quickly as possible to free up their money. So I would say that overall, that is fairly positive, considering everything else. The two other lending companies, BlockFi and Voyager, have both essentially become insolvent, having to require loans from FTX. FTX bought BlockFi for $275 million eventually, when it was valued at billions of dollars within the last 6 months. So times have changed dramatically. Celsius still has more assets on their in their holdings. And another thing I want to mention is that BlockFi and Voyager both have exposure to 3AC. Celsius did not. It would have come out if they did. And everybody's saying that Celsius was involved in sketchy loans and over leveraging. And yeah, maybe they are leveraging slightly based on depositing users' fund, rehypothecating, and that nonsense. But everything is collateralized. whereas BlockFi and Voyager were giving out unsecured loans to 3AC that have been defaulted on, which put them in a position to have to be purchased by FTX. And there's a bunch of FUD coming out on Celsius, and yet Celsius is still standing, whereas the two others have essentially, clear evidence that they have become insolvent, where they're getting help from FTX. So we'll see how this shakes out. I do think that there is definitely still a path forward, but we just don't know what's going to happen. For your mental health, it's probably best to just keep moving on, and over the long term, you can come out on top. And however expensive of a learning lesson this is, that's what it's going to have to be until we have definitive information from Celsius. Appreciate your time today, and thanks for tuning in. Have a good rest of the day. See ya.